Hey, it's Blake from Speedtech again, back here in the shop. Just going to go over some design stuff that you pro touring enthusiasts have been craving for, and so let's get started. Hey everybody, Blake, Speedtech Performance, back again to give you a little bit more insight into what we do here and how we do some of the things. Today I want to sort of cover off new product development and, you know, kind of the process that we go through to make that happen. So typically what we do is we'll get calls for a specific model or a customer that wants to build more than one of something, and so then we start the discussion with them, sort of their goals and timelines, and see if it fits into our scheduling and capacity. So this one specific new one we're working on, 65 through 70 Mustang. We had done one previously for a customer as kind of a real R&D program, torque arm chassis, new design philosophy for us with a full chassis, removing the floor, putting a new floor in, and the same design that we incorporated into the Charger, which was the removable subframe for engine and transmission install. So kind of fast forward a little bit, this customer wants to build 3 different cars for SEMA and then possibly for resale down the road as a complete rolling car. So sort of went through some of the ideas of what he wanted. He wants IRS, he wants, you know, Coyote motors, he wants possibly old school Ford big blocks. So we sort of have to incorporate all of that into the design philosophy. But the way we start is we get a car. We want a good car. We want a car that you know, has hopefully not been crashed, doesn't have a lot of rust, so that we know that it's, you know, a good original car. This Mustang showed up. I've never seen one so clean. Honestly, I think the only rust is like in the door hinge area here a little bit, and that's it. So to then go and plasma cut the entire floor and firewall out of it, you know, some people might cringe a little bit, but you know, that's the direction that all of this pro touring resto mod is going. You know, is just complete builds with all new components, and it's just essentially the sheet metal shape that people are keeping. So first step is we would take the car and we would 3D scan the car, which I think is pretty common nowadays, to get the dimensions and get the model. We would build the model in the computer. We would scan the floor as well and then cut the floor out. And in this case, that's been done already. Obviously, you can see that. Then we would scan the rockers, the parts that are left, so that we can then have a good, solid, blank model to start the process from. Now, because we reuse all the current components that we have, so like the front cross member that we use in the Camaro and the C10 and the Corvette is the same one we're going to use in the Mustang. Same control arms, same rack, same dimensions, same everything. So we can take that assembly and start building the model just by adding that assembly, the wheel tire combination, figure out the back space on the tire size that fits inside the fender. Then we would take, like for instance on this one, we would take our IRS rear section and we would place it in the car, and we would get everything, we would get the body set on a frame table in the model, and we would set everything at the ride height that we want. We would put the tire size in. This one, I think we were using a 315 in the front and a 345 in the back. Get that all sitting inside the body model, and then we just sort of start connecting the dots, really. The plan with this is the same as what we did on the Charger. It'll be a weld-in frame, welding to the rockers. We will not replace the entire trunk. We will mate the back half of the IRS to the trunk. This one will use a factory drop-in gas tank because there's options for most of the engines out there with that fuel tank. They also make fuel cells for the Mustangs that drop in, so you've got lots of options there. At that point, we're going to design the frame to fit the Coyote motor with a T56 and a big automatic, and probably we'll put a rough model of a big block in it just to make sure that we've got enough clearance, and we'll start designing from there. Once we get the frame designed, you know, with things incorporated like seat mounts and seat belt mounts sometimes into the design, then we'll go back and we'll start designing the sheet metal floor kit. And the floor, I think, is one of the things that some of the other manufacturers have just kind of glossed over. Being that we build cars and have built cars for a long time, for us it just makes sense to have a floor kit. Why on this car would you cut the factory floor out, especially if it needs to be replaced anyway, and then replace it with a factory floor and then have to modify it to fit the chassis or the tunnel or the transmission or the drive shaft or whatever? So by designing the floor kit as an option, we think we can save the customer some money in the long run. It takes probably, I would guess, a couple of weeks for a competent shop to design and bend and fit a floor kit. And we sort of have seen that it's, you know, 30 hours to install the floor kit, you know, 3.5 days, including all the prep with the weld through primer and all that stuff. So, you know, the floor kit it includes spot weld holes, it includes flanges, it includes, you know, sort of all the ways to piece it together. So just sort of another value added part that we've come up with for these, you know, extensive builds. One of the things to consider, I mean, we've obviously got it on a 1/2 inch thick frame table that's, you know, got 16-inch I-beams, and, you know, so it's a very square, stable platform for us, and we need this so that we can do the measuring and make sure the car is square and level, and, you know, it gives us a good solid place to measure from and to scan from and to build from. Once a guy in his shop has got the chassis on the floor and he's ready to do this sort of a job, you know, it's obviously better if you can have the body stabilized in one way or another. A frame table would be the best, and, you know, sometimes just a simple 2x3 table is all you need. Once the frame is up in the car, because we know the frame is square and level, you know, now you can work with the two of them together to get them mated up. You know, you can put the doors on, you can put the fenders on, you can put the car back together, you can put the suspension on and make sure that it's good before you do the final welding. So one of the other things that we really try to do is to get the ride height where it looks good. And everybody says that. Stance is everything, and it is everything, but it can complicate things when you talk about ground clearance for the headers, ground clearance for the oil pan. You know, there's just a lot of things that have to be worked out, and every car is different. The Mustang, for instance, has just a taller ride height than most other cars. When you build the model in the 3D program and you put the tires on it, it just sits higher. The rocker is higher than a Camaro, so it takes a little bit more work to really finesse it. You know, we had a design and started looking at it, put the wheels and tires on it, and you know what, it just didn't look that great. It needed to be lowered, so we ended up lowering the body like 1 inch, and it changes the whole look of the car. Sure, you could do that with the suspension after the fact, but the way we design the suspension is that it has an operating range, and there's an ideal ride height, and variations from that ride height change the performance of the suspension. So the IRS is a little bit more forgiving, but the extreme front cross member is designed to sit at 5 inches, and so we try to design everything around that, and then you have to make the engine fit. So when we're going through the design process, and I was talking about how we try to kind of tick all the boxes with all the things that are going to come up during the build, and I have to kind of pull the reins in sometimes with the R&D department and say, we're not building the whole car. The builder has to get involved and do some of it. We try to provide the basis and the groundwork and the foundation and the major parts and parts required to put it together. Things like headers. We'll take a header once you get the motor and transmission set in the car and you get the suspension in. We'll design a header that fits the engine. This is a big block header for a first-gen Camaro or a truck or anything that uses our extreme frame. Because it's got to fit around the steering shaft, it's got to fit the frame, it's got to fit all the things. So some of this stuff is what we cover off. The floor kit, for instance. This one, if I'm not mistaken, has got about 30 different pieces in it. It's got the tunnel, it's got the firewall. We've thought about where the master cylinder mounts, but not only where it mounts in the factory location, where it needs to mount to fit the Coyote motor. Hood hinges, how do they mount? Inner front fender wells, down tubes, all the things that you need to sort of finish the construction of the car become important, because we do it and we end up designing it anyway, so we might as well just continue down that road. It's a combination of a lot of different pieces of the puzzle to get it all together, but that's sort of an overview of how we go about it. So starts with a good customer with a good car, moves into scanning the body, designing the chassis with the components that we already have, designing the floor to fit all the other components that go in it, motor, tranny, seats, that sort of thing, and then doing the first prototype and install, and then put it into production and hope the phone rings. Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and also in the comments, leave us some information. Let us know. What are you working on? Last week in Columbus, we had some interest in the 58 through 60, 62, 63 Impalas, some Dodge pickup truck stuff, some Dodge A-body stuff. Let us know what you're working on. We'll see if we can't help you out.